They didn't even wait for the coffin to lower before whispering about me. Some weren't even whispering. They were laughing. My own uncles, cousins, even my father's so-called friends, smirking like I was some joke standing there in my old black shirt and worn-out shoes. One of them even said loud enough for me to hear, "Guess the useless son didn't even have money for a proper suit." I looked at them, but said nothing. My throat was full, not just with grief, but with something burning. I stood there, the failure son, as they always called me, while they circled like vultures, already planning how to split everything my father owned. Before we continue, if you've ever been underestimated or made to feel invisible, this story is for you. Share this with someone who needs motivation today. And don't forget to subscribe, because the twist that's coming, they never saw it coming. They thought I was just standing there in silence because I was weak. What they didn't know was that I had known about the will for months. In fact, I was the only one my father had told before he died. And he didn't just write a will, he rewrote the entire power structure of our family. But I let them laugh. I let them whisper. I let them insult me right there in front of the open grave, because I wanted them to enjoy their last few hours of fake confidence. Later, at the house, where the formal reading of the will was to take place, things got worse. My aunt looked me up and down and whispered to her daughter, "He won't even get the garage. He's just here for the free food." My cousin chuckled. "He'll probably cry for a few shares and end up with pity money." I said nothing, again. Because I knew the moment that paper opened, everything would flip. And then, the lawyer walked in. Black folder. Quiet face. Eyes scanning everyone like he already knew the storm that was about to hit. He opened the file, paused, and then said one line, a line that made the whole room freeze, and turned every single mocking face dead white. He looked straight at my aunt, the same woman who mocked my clothes not 10 minutes earlier, and said, "According to Mr. Rafiq's final will, the entire estate, including assets, properties, shares, and business control, has been left to his only son, Arsalan." Silence. A kind of silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a bomb had gone off. My cousin's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. My uncle leaned forward, thinking he misheard. "What?" he blurted. "Just him? What about the rest of us? We're his blood too." The lawyer didn't flinch. "Your names aren't in the document, not even once." I didn't move. I just sat there calmly while their world crumbled. For years they had treated my father like an ATM, visiting only when they needed money, gossiping about him behind his back, and feeding lies to turn him against me. But in his final days, my father saw everything clearly. He came to my apartment, the same one they said was too small, too cheap, and he cried. He said, "They only loved my money. You loved me when I had none." So he gave me everything. Now I wasn't just the failure son. I was the sole owner of every property they thought they were about to inherit, including the massive family home they were all living in. My aunt stood up, face red, voice shaking. "This must be a mistake. You can't do this. This isn't legal." The lawyer handed her a signed, video-recorded statement from my father. He made it very clear, he said. "If anyone challenges the will, they forfeit their right to even stay in the house for 30 days. My cousin gasped. "Wait, what?" I finally spoke. "That means, by next month, I want the house empty." And the room exploded into chaos. My uncle rushed toward me, fists clenched, his voice cracking between rage and desperation. "You think you can just erase us? We built everything with your father." But the truth was, they had built nothing. They only ever took. Loans never returned, businesses they sank. And yet now, watching them act like victims. I felt nothing. No guilt. Just clarity. My aunt grabbed the will from the table and started flipping through it like she'd magically find her name hidden somewhere. But there it was. Clear, stamped, sealed, and signed. Every asset, every property, every business share belongs to Arsalan. Not a single clause in their favor. Not one. The lawyer leaned over and quietly added, "There's also a recorded video message your father left. Would you like me to play it now?" I nodded. The TV screen turned black. Then came my father's weak voice, his face thin from the illness, but his eyes full of regret. "To anyone watching this," he said slowly, "if you are angry about my decisions, ask yourself, where were you when I was in pain, when I was struggling to breathe at night? Arsalan was the only one who fed me, cleaned after me, sat with me in silence. He didn't ask for money. He asked for time, and that is why everything I leave behind goes to him." My cousin started crying, real tears this time, but not for loss, for greed. Because the empire they were planning to control in their heads had disappeared in seconds. Then came the final twist. The lawyer turned to me again. "There's one more thing." Everyone looked up, hoping, praying for some mercy. Some leftover scraps. "Your father requested that the business headquarters be relocated, the accounts reset, and all top-level decisions now handled only by you. Effective immediately." I stood up, looked around at the people who had called me worthless for years, and simply said, "You buried the man who trusted you with everything, and you failed him. Now, you'll live knowing he gave it all to the one you called a failure." They went silent again. Not out of respect, but out of fear. Because now, they finally understood who I had become. That night, I walked into the old family mansion, the same one I wasn't even allowed to visit last year because it wasn't my place anymore. I stepped through the grand doors, and every single servant lowered their eyes. Not because they didn't know me, but because they had orders to ignore me from my aunt. But tonight was different. I walked straight to the main hall, where portraits of every so-called important family member hung, except mine. My picture had been taken down years ago during an argument where my uncle shouted, "You don't belong here." Now, with the entire house legally under my name, I stood there for a moment, then pulled my photo out of my bag, a newer one, confident, proud, and nailed it to the wall right beside my father's. And then, without hesitation, I picked up my phone. "Allie, send the trucks. Start with this mansion." Within an hour, moving trucks began arriving. Workers came in silently, packing everything. My cousin came running down the stairs, half asleep, screaming, "What's going on? What are you doing with our stuff?" I didn't even look at her. "You have 27 days left. Use them wisely." My aunt tried to threaten me with fake legal drama, public shame, even emotional guilt. "What will people say? How can you kick your family out?" I turned slowly, looked her dead in the eye and said, "They'll say, the son they ignored now owns everything they ever wanted." Next morning, social media exploded. News of the will leaked. My face was suddenly on every headline. Son who was mocked in family funeral now owns entire multi-million-dollar empire. Relatives. Evicted after shocking will twist. Silent son. Turns fortune around in one night. And that's when the real calls started. Investors, journalists, even CEOs who had never returned my emails before. Everyone wanted to know my story, and I was just getting started. Because revenge wasn't the goal. It was just the beginning.